officially 10 episodes in. But of course, with a 10th episode, there needs to be something crazy. Breaking news, as we just sat down about 15 minutes ago. With breaking news, Anthropic, the company behind Claude, the AI that literally helps us produce this podcast, I must say, has now filed for its IPO today, confidentially with the SEC. $965 billion valuation, $47 billion in revenue run rate, up from 10 billion a year ago. They raised 65 billion last year. SpaceX is also planning on going public. OpenAI is next. And then we covered the $300 billion venture capital quarter a few weeks ago. 80% went to AI. Now the 80%, now the AI companies that absorbed all that capital are heading into these public markets. And the question every investor should be asking is this: when the music stops, which companies will have real revenue? Because not every bet wins, and you're going to see this very, very soon. But this week proves it from numerous angles, right? Nike is getting sued for $1.5 billion in tariff costs that they pass to the consumers. A former president of the Knicks called his MLS team, quote, the worst investment he has ever made. There is so much going on in not only the sports world, but the global impact that AI has been happening, and also this flood of new money entering the market, liquidity entering the market. Some bets fail, some bets compound, but the difference is the business model underneath. We're your hosts, Sean and Liam Clifford, and this is episode 10 of Playbooks and Portfolios.
All right. Awesome intro. Those intros are getting better. Like, I feel like you're really getting into a flow of our intros here, Sean. That sounded really, really good.
Appreciate that. It's becoming more and more fun by the day, but I mean, we kicked off the intro hot and heavy with Anthropic. Let's hit it, right? Let me talk about this one more time. Announced today, which is June 1st, 2026. Yes, we record the podcast on Monday and then we release them on Thursday. So this will be old news by then, but as we are sitting here, June 1st of 2026, at a $965 billion valuation led by Dragoneer, Sequoia, Capital Group, D1, numerous others. Anthropic is now secretly, as they possibly can, releasing that they are filing their S1 and going IPO with a revenue run rate of 47 billion. They're leapfrogging OpenAI in the race to go public, and SpaceX also filed for their IPO targeting a $2 trillion valuation. Roadshows start this week. CNN, the 2026 window either becomes the most consequential IPO cycle since the dot-com era, or the most expensive lesson in narrative versus fundamentals that the public markets have ever taught. Anthropic was founded in 2021 by former OpenAI execs and best known for Claude, obviously. Liam, huge liquidity coming out, not only from Anthropic, but if you want to hit on SpaceX and then OpenAI, we're talking about, on at least valuation, market cap, 3.5 trillion, right around there, entering the market, being available, and flooding back into private investors' pockets. There's going to be a lot of liquidity. There's a lot riding on this IPO as well for the AI bubble, as they say, where AI goes, what people think about it. There is so much to talk about here, and it impacts every industry and impacts sports as well. But Liam, I just want to hear your first initial take, whatever that might be, on this huge day for the entire global market, but specifically the market in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I think to start, I think it's funny that it's a confidential IPO, and I go on LinkedIn and it's the first thing I see. So I don't know how that works, but it is officially trending on LinkedIn now. And
You have to think that they want that. The PR team gets paid way too much to not have that released the right way, and they know that what they're doing.
never any bad publicity, I guess, which this isn't bad publicity at all. But it's very interesting. This IPO, when and if it happens, is going to tell us a lot. One, about how crazy these valuations have been, specifically in the AI world, not just with Anthropic, but with OpenAI and kind of all the other groups that we've seen. So that'll be the most interesting thing. Is this will be the first time they're truly audited, and there'll be kind of a real look under the hood and a deep dive of, okay, is this legitimately what the valuations are? Does it make sense? Is it fair? And that could be really good. It could really be really bad. And we'll see kind of which way it goes. Like you said, ideally, I think there's going to be a lot of liquidity coming back into this space and going into a lot of investors' hands. The thing that also is super interesting, and I feel remiss if we didn't bring up, the fact that so many investors specifically into Anthropic are investors in and or other companies such as Amazon, Microsoft, Nvidia, Samsung, groups that are also worth billions, hundreds of billions, and almost trillions dollars from a market cap position in terms of what their company's valued at. So, what does that mean then if Anthropic comes out and it's audited and now the valuation's actually 50% lower than what it actually should be? What does that mean for companies like Amazon that are invested in and work with Anthropic, or companies like Microsoft or Nvidia, some of these huge companies? The S1 just got filed. I assume, I mean, the news broke today, so I assume this happened very, very recently, and we'll have some time to kind of digest it all. But initially, my initial thoughts is two things. One, it'll show us truly what AI looks like, and is it a bubble or is it not? And then two, the thing that I'm kind of excited to see is what then, with the answer of if it's a bubble or not, what that then looks like in return for everybody else involved, because it's not just one company. There's a lot of people kind of behind this, backing it, using it, and it's becoming the namesake in every single business, not just the small ones, but the big ones as well.
Yeah. To start, I think it's all about this flood of capital that's entering the market now, and what is that going to look like? If it's a successful IPO, then obviously that's going to bode well for every industry moving forward, private equity, venture specifically as well. But if it doesn't go well, it's going to definitely tighten the market, and it's going to be directly a cause of what we're going to see in 2027, 2028. It will be either a highlight or catastrophic for the entire industry. And I don't think that there's really in between here, because I listened to All In last week, and they're talking about AI washing, and
Yeah.
Sachs and Chamath are taking one side of the aisle, and
We're
Jason is
we're
taking the
getting into
exact opposite. Yeah, they're getting into it, and it's all about, is AI taking jobs? And they went back and forth on one side. All the facts, at least that they point out, have said that job loss is directly due to overhiring. It has nothing to do with AI, and they're actually using AI to blame for the firings that they made, even though these large companies overhired and made poor decisions just because they're profitable and they can do so. And then on Jason's side, he talked directly about how no, AI is revolutionary in numerous different ways, but now they're utilizing it to cut down on jobs, and now that there's going to be a restructuring of said jobs. I think that what this will show, past just what I said before, the first step of new liquidity flooding the market, it'll be the public's opinion on AI as a whole. Anthropic is doing God's work when it comes to the AI industry, and showing everybody what the sentiment is going to be around AI. Do people feel like revenue is being sold at what, 20 times, 25 times lower, or 20 times 20 to 25 times multiple on their revenue? Is there
for the
valuation? Is that the correct? Let me do some math here. 47.
Either way, it's been unheard of as
Yeah.
you're doing that. It's been is it 20, what is it,
It's right
20?
around 20 times, 20 times multiple. It's redefining how public IPOs go. If it does go well, it's obviously betting on the growth that they've seen. And no company, to give Anthropic their kudos, no company has grown from a $10 billion revenue run rate to 47 billion in 1 year. That's a 370% increase. So you haven't seen that at that type of scale ever. So kudos to Anthropic for obviously being the first to the table. But again, it affects every single asset class. People wanted to this compare it to the dot-com bubble. They want to compare it to where the hype has gone, and then it's obviously crushed the economy. And so it's what everyone's talking about. It's what everyone is looking at, and it will be studied for a very long time, no matter how it goes.
I saw something earlier, and I might miss the exact numbers, but Walmart generates around 725 billion in annual revenue, compared to Anthropic reporting 10.9 billion in the second quarter. Anthropic being valued at 965 billion, and Walmart being valued at 940 billion.
Right.
It's just like you said, it's a new kind of realm that we're even in, and that the fact that we're even talking about companies trading at 20, 25x multiples of what their revenue is, it's unheard of. We'll see what if it's ends up kind of proving itself true, and see if it makes sense. But at the same time, we've also never been in an era of life where we have AI as a capability, and the fact that it's just the beginning. And I kind of also see on the other end of why they're valuating these companies so high and allowing these multiples to be what they are. And we'll see if the public agrees with that as well.
Well, Liam, let me ask you a question because for everybody out there, I feel like we should even run a poll on this of do you feel like AI is legit? And when I mean legit, I mean does it substantially support your day? Like in your job, in your daily life, do you feel that AI is worth the hype? But Liam, to you, I know it obviously supports, but like, do you feel in the current moment, and I'd like you to pick a yes or no. I don't really want it to be down the middle. Do you feel like the valuations that Anthropic, OpenAI has seen in the AI space, do you feel like they are justified?
I
And I'm putting you on the spot, I know,
For
but
sure.
I want to hear.
I think, man, that's tough. It's tough because I am like going back and forth in my head of kind of being in the middle. I want to say the short answer is no. They're not justified because we've never seen anything like this before and we don't have anything to compare it to. So like, no, it's not justified. And I know you didn't want me to be in the middle, but at the same time, like I use it every single day. It doesn't just affect my life in business or football or like I use it for everything. If there's ever a question, I just go to Claude and I ask it the question. It's not like it's just something that I'm only using in one sector of my life. And I think that's what when you that's just me when you kind of break it out to okay the whole world using this. I'm sure when they're evaluating their own company, I'd love to see what that looked like of how they decided that, but I'd imagine that they probably are taking into consideration everything that this can affect, not just in business, not just in, I don't know, agriculture and energy and all
Tech,
these different.
industrial, all of the
Yeah,
industry.
every industry it touches and every person's lives personally from a consumer standpoint of things, it can touch as well if they lean into it. So, short answer, no, it doesn't justify it in my opinion, just because we don't have anything to compare it to, and there's been never been anything like this. But at the same time, I'd imagine there's some ways you can bend the numbers to make it pretty justified, and that's where I'm stoked to see kind of what this IPO will look like and how the public will react to it. It's hard to say that it won't go well just because of how much success they've had so far, but in the past, historically, things have gone haywire as well in kind of a similar realm. Now, I'd love to flip the question back to you. Like I just said, we've never seen anything like this, so there's really no telling what will happen. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that the question that lies here is is the valuation justified by the growth percentage that they are seeing year over year? And can they sustain that growth percentage year over year from here on out? And obviously, you're not going to see, I think that I would be shocked if they see over 370% growth next year and the year after that. And I mean, obviously, then it's justified. It makes complete and utter sense. The underlying question is how much day to day will these businesses change the economy, and how from a day to day perspective will they enhance each business intrinsically? And I currently, as a guy who uses Claudes every single day, has every connection, am running the agents and trying every nook and cranny and going down these long, long prompts to find every way to learn something. I personally still to this day cannot say that this is a justified valuation just yet because for me, I'm as dialed in as anybody when it comes to the only person that I feel like persona that is better than us in the AI space, maybe not instituting it and actually utilizing it, but better than us in the AI space is the coders themselves, the people that are actually building within the code. That's who I would say takes the cream of the crop. But I'm competitive, and I'd like to say that we're utilizing it even better in a real life case scenario every single day. And I just don't know if it can be justified. Now, I also believe that when this IPO does come out, you're seeing updates and updates and updates every single time on Claude's site. You're seeing it on OpenAI. You're seeing it 24/7. They're always updating the site. So I think that by the time that reaches the day, we're going to see a way different product. And I might be saying, okay, I take that back. And I was justifying my logic based off of the product right now. But I just don't see a world where you have to teach so many different people in an organization. So I can't get behind it just yet. I do wish them the best because it definitely affects our industry. And as venture capitalists, it's going to directly impact the capital markets, how much money is being flooded in, how people see early stage investing in the first place, the private markets as a whole. I hate to be bearish, but in the current moment, I just don't know if I can validate it. I don't think that the public sentiment is going to be very excited about AI companies. It just doesn't seem that way. You see the data centers conversations all the time. I know it's being skewed by certain groups and they're putting a bunch out there trying to ensure that data centers just don't pop up. And there's even the conversations around, oh, Chinese entities coming in and trying to stop us from growing too fast. There's so much going on, but
There's a lot.
all in all, the public currently definitely doesn't feel that hot on AI. I don't think anybody is when something's trying to take your job and your livelihood. And I could say that from just an NFL perspective, right? I mean, you're never going to feel thrilled when they bring somebody else in that's new. But this is a very global macro issue that we're seeing in real time. It's the first one that we've ever seen, Liam, in our lifetime as businessmen, that really truly, other than NIL, I would point NIL to like our macro shift.
Yeah, that's a good correlation for people that are into sports. But I mean, the interesting thing, and we should wrap this conversation up here and move on to the next topic soon. But we could talk about this for forever. The interesting thing when you think about it, and I just looked it up, approximately 9% of the general U.S. population regularly uses Anthropic's Claude, compared to
Wow.
52% of adults who use generative AI tools overall. This is pulled from Gemini on Google, so we'll trust Gemini.
Probably a little skewed in the way of it's used, but okay.
But my point being is, I'd imagine the Anthropic, when they're evaluating their companies, taking into consideration that only 9% of the population, if that's accurate, is using it, and what it could look like if 50% of the population turns over. One of these companies, I'll ask you a question actually. Do you feel like when these companies are evaluating themselves, are they are they evaluating it at a point where they're the only one and they're the only they take over and they're the only ones being used? Or do you think they're taking into consideration, okay, if OpenAI has market share and Gemini has market share and all these other groups are still kind of, or do you think that they're thinking, okay, when we go public, we're going to take over and we're going to become the dominant AI player and run the race against one other one, or somebody's going to fall off? Like, how are they justifying that when only 9% of the population is using it currently? Is it a huge forward thinking where they're expecting 30% or get up to 40% of the market share, or are they just expecting to kind of dominate when they go public and take over?
I think they're expecting for there to be a competitor or two, or five in this case scenario. You have Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, Grok, right? I would say the four major players, maybe Perplexity throw in there, even though I think that their kind of ship has sailed. I could be wrong, not trying to hate on Perplexity, but I definitely have not used it, nor do I hear about it at all. It's the two major players plus Grok that are the main keepsakes. Um, but I don't think that they're being stupid in the way of we're just going to be monopolize the entire industry and we're going to be the only ones available and all this. But I do think that they're not blowing out of proportion, but they're definitely as bullish as you possibly can be that everybody is going to be impacted and everybody's going to be using AI, and they're kind of forcing the agenda. And I think that that's always going to be a little bit tough on everyday people to hear that. And it's also crazy because we've also lived, as we're talking right now, we've lived through the dot-com bubble, and now where do you imagine your life without the internet? Absolutely not. Nothing. It's all changed, right? I could never not have email or text or, an Apple product, honestly. Like it's completely a part of all of our lives. I believe that it's going to be the same thing. I hope it's the same thing when it comes to AI, or else we have a bigger issue on our hands. And I think when we're 50 years old and we're looking back and there's two young brothers talking about their next wave, it'll be the same question. Could you see a world where you didn't have AI in your life? I don't I think that it's going to be definitely
100%.
part of it.
Yeah, history seems to repeat itself a lot of the time, so we will see. But government regulation could change things as well. So we'll see. Definitely an interesting topic to follow along on the pod. It's fun that we're at the beginning stages of it and we can follow along as they continue to progress. But let's I
Yes,
think let's
but
move into the next.
speaking of government regulation and regulating industries, Nike kind of under a little bit of the wrath of the Supreme Court after striking down Trump's tariffs in February of 2026, 6-3 ruling on the tariffs. Nike was hit with a three, not one, not two, but three class action lawsuits in under 2 weeks. Consumers want a share of the tariff refunds. Adidas was also sued in New York. Lululemon was sued in Michigan. Nike now anticipated 1.5 billion in tariff costs, raised their prices $2 to $10 across all apparel, sneakers, and equipment. And now there's over 1,000 cases filed in U.S. Court of International Trade. Legal experts are saying these consumer suits are premature. Refunds haven't fully flowed back yet. But I mean, Nike is a not just a sneaker company, it's a dominant force in every bit of sports, right? It's embedded in every league. It's endorsed with most major athletes. And when you see a $1.5 billion shift in Nike's economics, the ripple effects are going to hit everything. They're going to hit sponsorships, they're going to hit endorsements, they're going to hit athlete earnings, and it's going to change a lot of the macro environment when it comes to trade. And because Nike is a major player and has been utilizing China to lower costs for a long time, I think that this is going to be a shock to them. And I don't think that people are wrong for asking for money back and being refunded for an unjustified raise on the prices when all is said and done. I don't think that it's as crazy as some might sound. Nike just needs to ensure that they're looking out for their customer. The last thing they want to do is lose their consumer base. But Liam, my question to you really, how do you feel about these large companies, the Nikes, the Adidases, the Lululemons? If you're internal with their C-suite and they have to make a decision on whether I'm going to make a refund or not, how I'm going to address this issue, like how are you going about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think you look at it, Nike's Nike's going through lawsuits, Adidas same thing, and Lululemon similar, all for similar reasons with the tariffs and raising prices and then ultimately not happening. So just do the right thing and do right by everybody and give them their refunds and make people happy. I know it's easier said than done, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that go into it, but in my opinion, I think you kind of got to do that as a CEO and the leader of a company. It's no different than if you made a mistake and you needed to go confront someone about it. It's just the same type of thing, in my opinion. Personally, if it was me, I would own up to it and make sure I made everybody as happy as I possibly could. You can't make everybody happy, but do what you can do, try to make it better, and then move forward and kind of figure out what the next steps are. I'll kind of zoom out a little bit. When you look at Nike in the last year, I mean, their stock, I don't want to, I think exactly, I want to say it's down 24% in the last, roughly in the last year. They've been struggling to say the least, at least from an outsider looking in. From a high level, do you think that we are living through kind of the era of Nike kind of moving down kind of a downslope here? I know there's been a lot of change with Nike's executive team and they've been doing a lot of things to try to fix the kind of slow decline they've been on. Do we feel like we might witness a new player kind of come about? Nike, it was always Nike. The top of the top, everybody wanted it. No matter what, you walk into Dick's Sporting Goods, you're going straight to the Nike section. There was really no questions about it. Now there's obviously the other big ones like Adidas and Under Armour, but then beyond that, you have all these other companies popping up like Lululemon, Fabletics, Aritzia. Like the list goes on and on of all these kind of consumer brands that have now taken some of the market share. Do we feel like Nike's weaning to kind of teetering
Mhm.
here to go down even more, or are they getting ready to come back up? What do you think, Sean?
Well, Nike, well, let me tell a personal story that will kind of describe what I think is the bigger issue. So, Nike, for the longest time in the NFL, always, especially with draft picks, would sign them. They were always known for being like the number one brand to use when it comes to football cleats. They pulled back significantly, actually, a couple of years, I believe, right before I entered the league back in 23. Um, but I remember having conversations about it with other vets, and they were like, "Yeah, I used to have a big deal with Nike, and then they just pulled out." And the reasoning, it sounds like, was because Nike feels like they didn't need to do that anymore. They felt like their grassroots was there, that they had already established all the inroads that they needed. They can pull back on marketing spend. They can pull back on the the smaller deals to keep them afloat. And it just seems like Nike made that executive decision, saying, you know what, we're big enough at this point that people are going to get by us regardless. Now, has that boded well for them? I do not believe so. I think that obviously, I mean, their stock price reflects it, but more than anything, they are not showing up where they need to show up anymore. And now you have these smaller brands, these younger brands banging on the table and saying, "We'll do whatever it takes for the customer." They have that startup mentality saying, "We can outpace Nike in certain categories, not the overall categories, but specific niches in every single sport, right? I'll point to golf, right? You have good, you have the Titleist of the world, you have Adidas really making some good inroads there. There's just large group like there's certain sports where you're now starting to see new brands pop up and it's taking market share from Nike and they're definitely hurting because of it. And I think that if they are going to get back and now they're getting hit with these tariffs and these issues and it's going to reflect bad on their balance sheet. So they anticipated the 1.5 billion dollars of tariff costs. They raised their prices. It didn't happen. I think this is a great opportunity for Nike now to run something big for their customers and kind of jump back in the market. They probably had a bunch of different opportunities to do so, but they act a little bit too macro. They act a little bit too big for their customers, and I think the customers are seeing that. It's reflecting in their share price. It's reflecting on their sales. And if they're going to get back in the game, I think the best way to do so is guerrilla. Go back to the high schools. Go back to those kids that are coming up. Try to get deals done in the marketing game. You got to really push
Yeah.
and go back to what made you Nike in the first place.
It's a good point. I haven't seen many cool marketing tactics from them in a while, and that used to be their MO. Used to always see the commercials and really leaning into the just do it and the swoosh and all the stuff that makes Nike Nike. And another kind of just personal thing, like Penn State has now shifted from Nike
Right.
to Adidas for a reason, and I don't know the exact reasons, but I just from my time being there when we kind of were making the shift, I didn't get to be there while we were in Adidas school, but it happened when I was there, and it just seemed like from a high level, like you said, Nike was kind of starting to not pay as much attention to groups like college football teams where they might think that they have bigger things going on or they're working with LeBron or whoever it is. And it's like, okay, well, now if we're not going to get the same treatment that a company like Adidas is going to give us, we're just going to sign with Adidas. So I think that's probably been a similar theme to like you just said, where they're focused a little bit, they're getting a little bit more too macro. And I think they should probably narrow it back down and start to focus on the little guys, for lack of a better term, and really start to push back into what made Nike Nike overall from a marketing perspective.
100%. I agree. Switching gears, getting to the MLS and tough news. I mean, it's one example. I don't want to absolutely berate the MLS, but it's definitely newsworthy. Dave Checketts, former president of the Knicks and the Jazz, owned the NHL Blues and co-founded Real. I think it's Real, not Real Salt Lake. Most MLS, most soccer teams are Real, so I'm going to go with that. Real Salt Lake in 2005. In 2005, on Front Office Sports portfolio players, he called RSL Real Salt Lake quote the worst investment I made. Um, they struggled, 16,000 attendance in a 45,000 stadium. They actually ended up moving to a $20,000 or 20,000 seat venue, and it was full all the time, but still, and I quote, still a ways away from making money. They won the MLS Cup in 2009. He sold the team in 2013. Eventually, and inevitably, they got sold again in 2025 for 600 million bucks. On Apple's TV deal, Americans watch European soccer. They don't say the Chicago Fire, they say Arsenal, right? In 2025, the MLS playoff, 711,000 viewers on Apple TV. Man City versus Arsenal on NBC, 2.6 million. So I mean, this is another reason why you diversify your asset classes, right? If you're going to invest in sports, you don't just invest in one team and write it off. I think that there's got to be a diversification. But Liam, without you absolutely crushing the MLS, because I don't think it's a terrible investment. I think that it is the investment that you're making, right? It's the investment into being able to call a team yours and get that marketing prowess in a city and be able to stand on something. I'm sure that most MLS teams are losing money, but what's your take on, do you think that this is the worst investment from an outsider looking in? Do you think this is the worst investment ever? Is he right in saying that? Is he wrong? I mean, what's your
I
thoughts?
mean, I can't speak to how he feels, so I'd imagine he probably feels like it was the worst investment he's made, 'cause I'd imagine he lost a good amount of money on it. Now, it seems like from what I just quickly looked up, the team just they sold again for 600 million, correct, in 2025. He sold his stake in back in 2013 for what it looked like. I think it was 50 or 60 million. And what he had bought it for, he had kind of paid a $10 million fee to get into the league and start to grow the team, and then ended up exiting it for virtually nothing in his eyes. And then now looking at it from his perspective, 10 years later, it sells for 600 million. So is it more of a, hey, I just jumped the gun and didn't wait long enough here and kind of just made a decision that I shouldn't have? Or is he looking back and not regretting his decision and thinking, I'm glad I got out of that in the first place and I don't think it's going to go anywhere? Now, I think the point is important that you brought up, where I don't think it's just a testament to MLS where Americans would rather watch European soccer, but I do think that just in general, people in the US watch European soccer more than the MLS. Now that might be shifting, and I think with FIFA coming here, it's gonna be big, and I think that'll help, and that's probably all part of the reason they wanna do it. But there's just not a lot of times that I'm personally, this is my personal opinion, where I'm checking in on all the teams. I'll check up on FC Cincinnati here and there with our relationships we have with them and kind of it being a hometown team. But other than that, like I don't know honestly many of the teams that are across the US, but I know Real Madrid, I know Manchester United. Like I've heard of them, I see them, I see what they're doing, and I think it's a lot of it comes down to they have the stars, they have the stars of the teams, they have the players, they have the notoriety, and that's where we need to see the MLS kind of get to, and we see that with Inter Miami of getting Messi and paying
Mhm.
him whatever that deal was. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I know it was insane, and that's probably helped them a ton. I'm sure they're selling out majority of their games, and their stock price has probably skyrocketed. Now that was an investment to get him on the team and be able to kind of do the things that they're doing. But all in all, is it the worst investment? Maybe in his eyes. I wouldn't say it's anything to dwell on if you're Dave Checkett, but it is what it is, and you move on. But it is a testament to kind of seeing how the MLS will continue to progress. Especially, I think the most important thing is seeing how they progress after FIFA comes to the United States and see kind of what the sentiment is from the population here.
Well, I think that also, so he's the former president of the Knicks and the Jazz, and he owned the Blues in the NHL. And this is my point to everybody who invests in sports: is don't just invest in a team, invest in the ecosystem around it. Like, be able to diversify your portfolio and ensure that you're not going to just, put all your eggs in one basket. And I think that that's why, why we do what we do, investing in those sports adjacent assets, assets that find themselves in the sports world, but can grow outside the sports world. Because I always tell people, whether it's somebody brand new to investing in sports, or if it's a family office that owns a team currently, you can never diversify enough, and you can always find different nooks and crannies to be able to make your investment better. And this is a great example of why we do what we do personally, in my personal opinion, is to be able to give people all access to the best deals in sports tech and tech in general, and healthcare and all those different things that kind of touch the sports world, because it's ever changing. There's so much that goes into everything. So Dave, Dave Checkett's sorry that your investment went poorly, but if you're ever in the market for investing in sports in general, I have a fund that I believe is right up your alley, actually, Dave. So would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Uh, spending to a completely different topic. This one, I feel like we'd be wrong in not saying. And I know it was controversial, but the New York Giants quarterback Jackson Dart recently sparked a major sports media firestorm by introducing President Donald Trump at a quote "Fighting for American Workers" rally in New York. While the move drew a lot of public criticism from some teammates, Abdul Carter, our former teammate, as one of them, uh, President Trump actually defended Dart, and the quarterback has been since publicly addressed about the situation. I did watch his interview where he spoke about it. He issued a statement, and then kind of deflected the rest of the questions. And then it was actually interesting because right after that rolls up Abdul Carter, and Abdul they it was cool because they ended up giving a hug, kind of dapped each other up, and then Abdul stated why he disagreed with Jackson. And then if you notice, Liam, Jameis Winston also came on and he gave his big grand thought of what this means. I'm going to point back to one thing though, and it's not taking one side or the other. I'm not going to sit here and do that right now. But what I will say is I'm going to point back to 2020, when a coach named James Franklin, somebody who I have a lot of appreciation for, uh, got up in front of the media and was asked about the current state when 2020 and everything was going crazy and there was so much divide. It was actually at the rise of all the BLM movement, um, and on top of that, it was then COVID. So, like, I mean, 2020 was a crazy year for everybody. But Franklin talked about specifically the fact that the locker room is a melting pot that a lot of people should focus on and actually try to mimic in a bunch of different ways. And what he meant by that was it doesn't matter what your background is, who you are, where you come from, uh, you know, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, anything. At the end of the day, it's a beautiful place where people can come together, have conflict and have controversy, but ultimately come together for a team to win for a city and for a group of people. And I've always appreciated that. And I thought that although the media I will take a shot at the media in all this. I thought that this was overblown, in my personal opinion. I thought that the way that they criticized Jackson Dart and the way they criticized Abdul Carter, both sides criticizing everybody in the whole deal, I thought that that was overblown, and I thought that it was actually a really really good opportunity to showcase two people in the same locker room coming from two backgrounds, taking two different stances, but then being able to come together and they both issued a statement. Both said it that they're both good. I get the media then going at Abdul and saying, "Oh, you shouldn't post that on Twitter," which I'm sure, it is what it is. Like, there's going to be some some thoughts and you're going to want your state your opinion. There's might be a better place or a better time or a better way to state your opinion. Sure, like we can debate that if you want, but more than anything, I did think that this was it was a very interesting opportunity and a really great opportunity to be able to show what two guys in a locker room, when they have some controversy, are able to talk it through, have their differing issues, right? Jackson not even really defending Trump in whatever way, shape, or form, but having an opportunity to announce the president of the United States at a rally is a cool opportunity for somebody, whether it's Trump, whether it was Obama, whether it was whoever it was a great opportunity. And then on the flip side, Abdul stating his point, I think that both are in the right. You can 100%. That's what the beauty of America is. State your claim, state what you think, but then being able to come together and practice the next day. That's what this is all about. But I did think the media overblew blew this a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't have a ton more to say about it. You said everything I was gonna say. It's just it's a cool thing to see in a place and in a time in the United States where not often is there civil debating or kind of two people that disagree, and then they're able to come back together and be like, "Hey, it's all good. I still disagree with you, but like dap up, hug, we're good to go. Like let's go hang out." Like that you don't see that very often anymore, and it's rare. And it was cool that yeah, the media definitely overhyped it, but it was even still at least the good. If you take any positives away from it, the good from the media overhyping it was the fact that we got to see a real kind of live thing play out that 2 athletes had a disagreement and even take the athlete portion away from it, just 2 people had a disagreement and they were able to come to kind of a whether it was a middle ground or not, they still came to a conclusion where they were okay. They said they were friends. They said there's no hard feelings and they move on. And I think that that's the most important lesson to take from it all. And I wish more people in the United States of America took that same position, but hopefully sports continue to play a role of that to continue to show people that people come from every walk of life. You're right. It's a melting pot. The locker room's a melting pot. It's one of my favorite reasons of playing the sport. I've met people in that locker room at Penn State specifically over the last 5 years of people that I probably would have never met in my entire life if I wasn't playing for Penn State. And it's a cool place to be able to go meet different people, talk about
Mhm.
opinion. I used to debate my teammates all the time on different things, whether what depending on what was going on at a certain time. And no matter how it really didn't get too heated, but no matter how heated it got, it was ultimately always, hey, we're good. This was fun. It's always fun to hear different opinions from people that have different backgrounds. I'm still learning. I'm always going to still be learning. I want to hear your opinion, but no matter what, we're good when it comes to it and when it's all over. So super cool to see the way they kind of handled it. Happy for those guys, and I think there's a lesson to be taken for the broader world to kind of when they do look at that's kind of how it should be played out.
And the one thing that I will say with the current administration with President Trump, I have never really enjoyed the way that the debates go, the talking over, the kind of disrespect. I think that you go back to 2012 when President Barack Obama and Mitt Romney went back and forth in that election. And I do remember, like, that was my first election. I couldn't vote yet. 2016 was the first time I could vote, but 2012 was kind of the first that I knew what was going on. I kind of had an understanding of the two sides and what was transpiring. But I always thought that whenever they would get up, you go back and you watch those debates, they were very respectful. And I hope that I this is a great example of two sides being respectful and coming together and eventually like just kind of sharing, when they're faced together, you see a hug, you see a dap up, and then you see just kind of stating their opinions and they'll go back and forth in the locker room however they will, and it is what it is. But I do want to see America get back to that. I you know me, I don't bring politics into a lot of things. And nor am I going to choose a side in any of this. More than anything, I would like to see all of this get back to some normalcy coming into the next election. Um, and I think that a lot of people in 2028 would appreciate that as well. But that kind of ends our didn't think we were going to get too political on
Talk
this
about
this
it. We talk about it all here at Playbooks and Portfolios. We even got into the politics a little bit. It was fun.
We definitely do. And to wrap it completely has nothing to do with any of that, but Bryson DeChambeau using AI to fix his swing. He was in an interview and he stated that, um, but he had opened up in at Live Golf Korea, and he opened up his round with a 65 and a 68. Saturday, he shot a 71. He was frustrated. He felt like his swing was out of sync. He couldn't get his hands getting ahead, couldn't turn the club over. And does he call a coach? No. Does he call a friend? No. Does he watch some game tape on himself? No. What does he do Saturday night? He spent an hour on the range and then went back to his room and, as I quote, started talking to Gemini. That was what he did to fix his swing. And what he asked it was the AI, the physics principles behind the club turnover. As he said, the alpha torque, the gamma torque, grip pressure, tension. His words, quote, I was slamming the club in the ground trying to figure out what to do. I was frustrated. I didn't actually figure it out on the range. I went back and started talking to Gemini. And lo and behold, he goes out on Sunday and he shoots a 65 and he finishes third, one shot out of the playoff. Um, really cool,
Cool
honestly,
for Marco.
interesting.
Cool for
But Liam,
Marco.
Liam, I want to. I know we've talked very briefly about golf and there that being a place where AI has had some new startups pop up left and right. Can you talk about what you're seeing in the market currently and how AI specifically for golf, but then I guess if you do have a thought as well on more of just sports in general, can help a guy like Bryson, can help a guy like you and I, and then kind of broadly like what you're seeing as AI continues to develop in the sports coaching realm.
Yeah. I think it's for starters, I think you're gonna see me out on the range now talking to Claude and talking to Gemini and kind of fix my thing. But I think overall, like to answer your question, I see a lot of companies pop up from a startup perspective that are trying to get into the kind of AI coaching world where they're able to not take jobs, but assist coaches in helping create scouting reports or kind of taking video analysis and being able to break down the way your body moves. And okay, if this is how, if you compensate when you plan off your left leg, how, whatever the percentage is, what can you do to then fix that? And there's a lot of things that I'm now seeing that, and companies that are popping up that are doing those things. The interesting thing that I hesitate though when talking about some of these startups is, for example, Bryson DeChambeau didn't go use. Now I don't know if there's any created. There might be, but DeChambeau didn't go use some golf AI on LM. He went to Gemini. Same
Right.
reason. If I wanted to create a scouting report or break down film or figure out why I'm struggling to cut off my right foot, I could probably talk to Claude and figure it out. So, not to be the Debbie Downer for some of these kind of AI sports startups, I do think there's a place where they can create a very specific kind of LLM, which is going to take time off of just feeding it data and kind of creating an interface that's very kind of user friendly specifically for sports. But to answer your question, there's a ton coming out. There's a lot of people attacking this space. People see it as an opportunity. Stories like this will continue to kind of progress it, in my opinion. The biggest question is who's going to go use some new sports tech AI startup software when you could just go talk to Claude or talk to Gemini, just like our boy Bryce DeChambeau did. So that's kind of my take on it. Not sure what your opinion would be, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, I think that, and just like we talked about in the first segment here, right? Anthropic filing at such a large valuation, they need to be able to justify it. And it's never a bad thing when AI is being talked about by some of the best in the world at what they do. And I think that this is a good example of what that might take to get there. Now, my first question to at least personally for Bryson would have been, are you on the pro plan or are you on the free plan? Just to understand like where is he at in the revenue run rate and does he actually pay for it?
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that overall it's a very it gives sports AI, sports tech an opportunistic look at a future. I think that there'll be definite great case studies because I don't think that there's ever a world when I'm thinking of startups that could compete with an Anthropic to be able to create an AI coach like this one, or in this case scenario where Bryson's using AI to support his swing. I think that this is the beauty of the startup land is where Anthropic's not going to have a drop down menu of now, you upload your video and it's going to give you all the enhanced features of what your swing should look like and how you could protect it and make it better. That's probably a startup and there's an opportunity there. Now, how big is the opportunity? How large is the TAM? Those are all questions for another day. And honestly, in diligence of some startup that we look at. But I do think that this is a cool, it's a cool story to hear from a guy who's had so much success, was looking for a bounce back, right? He got cut in the Masters this year. He was cut at the PGA Championship this year. He was looking for the bounce back that he needed. He got it through Gemini. Wow. Great story.
Super
I
cool.
Google Gemini does something to be able to support him in his. The marketing team should be all over this, to be
No
honest with you.
doubt.
I hope they are. If you're not,
100%.
definitely get on it. Um,
And let
but
me say, I am bullish still on AI sports startups and analytics and kind of these companies that are coming about that can diagnose certain things with through video analysis and all those things. So don't take me the wrong way. As the guy that looks at all the companies, please keep sending them our way because I'm happy to look at them. I'm actually diligencing a few as we speak in kind of the AI coaching realm. So it's a space that's growing. There's definitely opportunity for startups, and that's what we love. And that's kind of the reason we started this podcast in the first place.
100%. But five stories, one thread. Anthropic filing for their IPO was the big news, but Nike being sued for 1.5 billion in tariffs. The former president of the Knicks pretty much calling MLS team the worst investment he'd ever made. A little politics in this one. Bryson DeChambeau finding and fixing his swing at midnight with Gemini. I'll tell you what, AI filing public, AI powering fan platforms, AI coaching athletes. It's definitely not a sector. We've definitely learned that it's an infrastructure layer, and the investors who see it as an infrastructure, not a hype, are the ones who are going to compound. But that's what this show is all about. That's what the fund that we're doing is all about. And That's why we're here today. I will say, please like, subscribe, follow Playbooks and Portfolios, share it to your friends, debate our topics, call us idiots, praise us, whatever you want to do. I am all for all of it because that's why we do it in the first place. But from playing the game to owning a piece of it, this is Sean and Liam Clifford, Playbooks and Portfolios, episode 10, logging out.